Hello and welcome to The German Guy Reviews. Let's take a moment and talk about Bully Herbig. Bully Herbig is a German comedian who had a TV show in the late 90s to early 2000s. His humor was often modern, but also sometimes very nostalgic. You could say he was the nostalgia person. In a way that is even more accurate than you might think. His sketches would often revolve around movies he liked, like Blues Brothers or his favorite TV shows of all time, Winnetou and Star Trek. He even made entire movies about them, just as a love letter to his childhood. I'm also working on a Kingdom Hearts movie at the moment right now, but I have to figure out some legal issues. A few more. Anyway, I thought it could be fun to take a look at his movies and see which of them still hold up. Starting today with Wicki. Wicki the Viking is, as you might imagine, a cartoon show from the 60s, so around the time when Herr Herbig was still a child. It's the story about a little Viking boy and his tribe, which gets into numerous difficulties that they always try to solve the same way. All strong, problem weak, we beat Black Death. With fist! Ah! And of course, the lesson is also always the same. You don't only need to have it here, you also need it here. No, of course, the show teaches that muscles alone rarely solve anything, that brain is above brawls. And to get that lesson across, you have Wicki, who always has the saving idea. After he did a few lines of coke. Guys, I got it. Sandwiches and tractor beams. Where do all these ants suddenly come from? And yeah, that's basically the premise of the show. Don't work hard, kids, work smart. While also avoiding some pretty horrific historical facts. So did Herr Herbig create a fateful adaptation? Well, when I was little, I only saw a couple of reruns on the telly, and therefore I can only judge the movie on its own merits. So let's go. We begin the movie with our titular character and a little girl named Ilvi asking our hero to rescue a doll of hers from a wolf's den. If that thing is not stuffed full with corn that you need in order to survive the winter, I don't see any reason why you need it so desperately. Or the wolf wanting it. The boy sneaks inside and quickly finds the toy.
I'll steal it! No one will ever know! No one will ever know! No one will ever know! No one will ever know!
But of course, someone does find out. If you end up in the hospital and need just $1 to survive, don't ask me for money. I have no interest in keeping this Wicki going. Wicki then runs for his life as the angry beast chases after him. He climbs up some rocks and hides in a safe spot. Ah yes, a boy with curly hair and his doll hiding in the woods. Surely this will win over the male demographic.
And so I cry sometimes when I'm lying in bed just to get it all out what's in my head. And
Then the opening credits begin, which becomes like an old medieval painting for about 5 seconds and then blends back into real life. We then see Wicki's father Halvar, the chief of the village, returning from a voyage. We get a narration by Bully Herbig himself, explaining who the Vikings are.
Hoch im Norden lebt das Volk der Wikinger. Ihre Tapferkeit wird bewundert und ihre Raubzüge sind gefürchtet. Sie rauben und plundern Tag und Nacht, sogar an Sonn- und Feiertagen.
Now forget everything that I just said and root for these guys. 'Cause Turns out our dear friend Bully is not only the narrator, he is also a character within the story. A guy from Spain sent by the crown to research the Vikings and their culture. I mean, obviously he is. If you have the chance to make a movie out of your own fanfiction about one of your favorite shows, then of course you are going to insert yourself into that world. Someday. Halvar is overjoyed to see his son again, and that he can put his wife into underwear that by 11th century standards are like volcano hot. Nowadays, people don't have to look no further for some porn than your average music video. Which is really getting out of hand at this point. Just yesterday I had to defend myself from 3 naked people with a stick. Anyway, Wicki's father decides that he and his son had the talk. Not about the biological differences between boys and girls, obviously, but about things like, to quote Halvar, if a boy and a girl stand in front of a wolf, the girl has the right to run away. The boy doesn't. The boy is to be ripped apart to serve as a distraction for the girl. Do you like it, son? It's called being a gentleman. We imported it from the French. What the mighty chief is trying to say is that in recent time, Wicki has been a embarrassment with his thinking and planning. Just look at me, son. I never plan anything. That's why I started my voyage with 10,000 ships and only returned with 1. But I came out unharmed. Check and mate. When his wife starts to mock him for bringing her sand, which her husband mistook for salt, and says that this wouldn't have happened to Wicki because he is smart, the Viking King loses his temper and challenges his son to a competition to see what is better, intelligence or strength. I will show him. My 10-year-old son is going to look so pathetic in front of the entire village. God, I'm insecure in my masculinity. The challenge is going to be rock throwing. Rules are simple, no help from another person, and the first one to get all his rocks to the flagpole wins. Wicki asks if he can have his own helm if he wins, so that he can start becoming a true Viking. His father responds as follows.
Habt ihr das gehört?
Such a small dick! Such a small dick! You can barely see it! At first, it looks like Halvar is winning without even breaking a sweat, but Wicki gets help from his good old friend, the Finger of Ideas, and uses a nearby tree as a slingshot. I wonder what will happen if... Wicki wins the competition and his dad is forced to give him his own helm, which his old pups doesn't like at all. And so, bummed out, asking himself if his father will ever appreciate him for who he is, he goes to the lake with his best friend to feed some sea dogs. Ylvi tells him that if he believes in his dream of becoming a true Viking, then that means that he can do it. And just so he knows, she also tells him that she has a dream as well, flying like the birds. Later, the entire town is having a party to celebrate their recent plundering, while Wicki builds a kite. The next morning he wakes up his best friend and accidentally throws a stone at her face. And then after that, he shows her his flying machine. And it works! Is this going to be one of those alternative history stories like Wolfenstein, only that it is the Vikings who roll over the world with laser guns? But his excitement gets quickly crushed when he sees an enemy ship approaching. Ylvi runs away to sound the alarm and sends Wicki flying around the area. However, because Ylvi's lungs are not strong enough, the alarm sound ends up being nothing more than a little fart. The village is shot with fire arrows, setting the whole settlement on fire. The villagers try to fight them off. At least that's what we are being told by bully narrator I have to make a few budget cuts hair big, and we learn that the attackers have taken all the children. I don't want to say you deserve it, but... you deserve it. The parents of the kids start to debate who the attackers could have been, and the village elder tells them about a legendary ship with black sails that comes from beyond the end of the world. The Vikings were the original owners of the Black Pearl? Wicki shows up, and his father has nothing better to do than call him a coward for being in a tree the whole time. Compare yourself to Kratos, son! That kid is bringing down our gods! And I am not even raising you that differently! I tried yelling, I tried showing my disappointment, and what more can a father do? Anyway, the following day the chief declares war against the mysterious thieves, and so they go on board their ship and follow them. And yes, you all know what happens next. Wicki snuck on board the ship to prove his old man that he can be useful too. Before his father has any time to argue, they get attacked by ships of Sven the Terrible, the main antagonist of the series. They decide to hide inside some fog and suddenly run into a ghost ship with black sails, thinking it must be the one they have been looking for. A few moments later they accidentally sink the ship and call out for the boy, but miss the chest in which he is in. And then we get some, I have to say, brilliant underwater comedy. The other day they hear noises coming inside from a chest the man brought on board, but it's not Wicki. Instead, they find an old man. Oh, but of course, it makes all perfect sense. That chest is magic. What was just a normal day in the outside world was many decades within. Speaking of Wicki, the redhead has in the meantime been found by Sven the Terrible and his crew. The evil man who was behind the attack on his village is told by his guest that Halvar is his father. Naturally, the boss man screams at his minions for their incompetence, since he wanted all the children for his plan. They put him on the deck, but he quickly escapes by using a swordfish. Don't try this at home, kids. And then he skis across the freaking ocean with the help of some sea dogs. In just a few hours, the kid managed to find some sea dogs, teach them enough discipline to swim in just one direction, and learn how to water ski. The time traveler that is going to murder him will be here soon. Back to the strong man of the title. Turns out the man in the chest was actually a woman. The lady explains that she and her crew are artists and that they were attacked by pirates who came for their masks. I see. Someone is trying to become him. The crowd gets to know the woman a little bit better, who goes by the name of Li Fu, but then suddenly Wicki returns. He tells them who took their children and where the bad guys are going to next. That place is the Horn of King Töle. The story is that there was once a king whose children always lied to him, so he created a magical horn that can only be used by a child that never told a lie in his life. That will reveal his enormous treasure. Okay, this is very cool and all, but stuff like this makes me always immediately think, how does it work exactly? Like, what are the rules? For example, does it count if the child said something that he or she thought was true but isn't? What about when it told a joke or came up with a story around the campfire? What if it said on one day the glass is half full and the next day it's half empty? This is the kind of stuff that I have time and energy to think about, which is absolute definite proof that our Western civilization is far from dying. Anyhow, Li Fu tells them that she can guide them to where they need to go. Wicki, yet again, has a smart idea to arrive faster at their destination than their enemies, by taking the boat across land instead around the island. The villains bring the children to the tower where the magical horn is hidden. The men charge at the bad guys, so Sven is starting to hurry. While the fighting is going on outside the tower, the man that is terrible is ordering one child after another to blow the horn. The day little Björn, who's a germophobe, came face to face with his worst nightmare. Our hero and his father arrive only to see Ylvi blow the horn and reveal the riches. A fight breaks out between Halvar and Sven while the tower collapses around them. The hole in the ground that is responsible for this gets so big that it releases the treasure. A single coin. King Töle had a combination of all known addictions. The children escape thanks to Wicki's smarts, and Sven, funny enough, is not beaten by Halvar, but by himself. They then make their escape. the chief having to run after his ship while it's slipping down to the water. Some of the men rightfully point out that if they go down the cliff like that, they will not make it. But then Wicki executes his final master plan and uses dozens of his kites to make the ship fly. Well, shit, they're unbeatable now. Have to start to learn Norwegian for the coming new order. And so they fly off into the sunset. Just look at that. Isn't this the most beautiful dumb thing you have ever seen? Ilvi, to whom the treasure logically belongs to, since without her it wouldn't have been revealed, decides to give it away to Lifu, since she and her family are poor to the point that she was about to be sold off right before she came on board the artist's ship. And the last words of the movie are those that lay the grounds for a sequel. That already exists and we will get to another time. And that was Wicki and the Strong Man. Which sounds like a porn name. What do I think of it? Well, let me start off by saying that from what I remember when I was little and from what I've been told from other people, that they did the show a really good tribute. The characters look and behave the way they're meant to be. You can clearly see that this was a passion project for Bully Herbig. A lot of love went into this. The film set, the costumes, it deserves a lot of respect. The story is one that you have seen many times over, but that's what makes it so solid. The child that played Wicki was really good and everybody else did a passable job as well. There's only one thing that I really disliked, and that was the girl that played Ilvi. I'm not gonna go so far to say that I hate her, but the character that she plays is your ultra so cute I'm gonna get diabetes, it's too much, please stop it, it gets annoying. But she is thank God not in the film for the majority of the time, which is good. All in all, an enjoyable flick with much of the clever humor that Herr Herbig is famous for. It was even so good that I watched some of the classic series again, from Wicki and the Bully Parade. I am certainly glad that I saw it, but one time is more than enough. The German guy out and auf Wiedersehen.